Hi, and welcome to episode 115 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Revelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, September 6th, 2015. I am back. I took the month of August off from recording, and so this is the first Sunday of September. So I'm back. I started thinking about the end of last week that I was going to record a show today, and I was kind of excited to see you all. So I have been knitting all the things. I mean, seriously, I went a little cast on crazy, some would say. I have 23 active works in progress. All but two of them I cast on last month. I know I don't work on all of them every day, but all of them see, me knitting on them every week. I'm not going to show you all of them today, so don't worry. Um, you don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. So what I'm going to do is just show you one thing today, and then I will have lots of things, like backlog of things to show you, because I have like a bunch of other stuff to show you and talk about and stuff. So for on my needles, I'm going to show you the one of the projects that I have been working pretty consistently, like almost every day. I've picked it up and done maybe a few rounds, just and this whole like casting on all these things at once. Every day I sort of would cast on something, or almost every day. And it's really making me feel like engaged with all of them. It's not like when you have a lot of works in progress, say you start knitting a sweater and you get halfway through and you get sick of it, and then you put that down and you start a new sweater, and then you kind of get sick of that one and you start something else. And so you've kind of gone through and you're kind of like you don't want to go back to it because you were sick of knitting it. When you have all these new projects on the needles, it's fun. You're like, oh, I think I'll knit a little lace, and which lace project should I do? And so I'm engaged sort of with all of them. But some, for one reason or another, I've been trying to be a little more consistent and knit more on. Try to knit at least a couple rounds every day. And the first one that I'm going to show you is that. And I told you I was going to knit this. This is this little yoke sweater designed by Meg Swanson, and it's called the Garland necklace yoke sweater. So I cast on for that. I am using this wool, which just looks dark, 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 but there. It's like a heathery charcoal kind of black, and this is Unspun Icelandic. It's a type of a pencil roving, and so that probably tells you why I've been trying to be consistent in picking this up, because it's a bottom up yoke sweater. So I have this much of the body done. So the yarn for this, if you remember last year, I knit my big garter stitch Elizabeth Zimmerman coat, and so this is some left over from that project, and I was knitting that in like October, November, and did get considerable eye strain. So I thought it would be good to get through at least kind of the solid stockinette kind of parts when I could sit outside on the porch and knit in it in daylight. So it's been much easier. I've got about maybe 3 inches left of the body, and then I'll start the sleeves and join it all together. So I do maybe 4 or 5 rounds a day. It's also really nice because then it's I could knit this You could too, knit the stockinette stitch body in the round in, a week. Um, but I would get sick of it. Where this, it's like, it's nice. I can just, knit. If I'm watching a podcast or something, I'll pick that one up so that I can just keep my eyes on the screen and just go round and round and round. And then it gets to the end of that podcast, and I can put that down, and, I've gotten a little progress on it. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about some of the changes that I've made because, I do like to change things up and make things a little bit my own. The biggest change, and I think I told you about this before, is I'm making mine a cardigan. So I have a steek inserted in there. It's not going to show up. So it's going to be a steeked cardigan. I put in on the side here, I did phony seams, which is Elizabeth Zimmerman's little way of what you do is you drop a stitch down all the way down. I did it to the ribbing, and then when you pick it back up, you just pick it up with a crochet hook, like if you were going down after a drop stitch. You pick it up, you pick up 2 out of 3 rows. So you pick up 1 stitch, or like one little ladder, and then you pick up 2 at a time. So you pick up 1, then you pick up 2, and then just keep going so that you're connecting 2 out of every 3 rounds. And what it does is if you were here in person, you could see it looks like a seam because those stitches just are, off the little V's of the knit stitch are a little bit elongated, more elongated than the rest of it. So it doesn't pull it or anything, make it so that, it pulls up on the side or anything. It doesn't do anything like stabilize it like a actual sewing seam would, but it just, and it also, like if you're going to fold this flat, it makes a natural sort of fold line where it just naturally folds on that. So I did that. I changed up the bottom. I don't know if it's gonna, there's a picture that shows that better. The bottom of hers has sort of a split hem at the bottom, and hers is all in garter stitch at the bottom. Well, I like the split hem. I just saw that on some other like new design too, but for a cardigan, I wanted something a little more classic, a little more traditional, but not kind of boring, just plain ribbing. So I don't know if this is going to show. It's not really, but I did sort of a ribbed, it's got like a little skinny, like waving, like 2-stitch cable, and then like a wider kind of like cable. So I really, really like how it looks. I will probably do that again in another sweater that will show up more. That's not this dark kind of fuzzy yarn, but I really like how it looks. And then I'll do that on the cuffs. I started it with a double start, or what Joyce Williams called the Latvian cast on. I do it a lot on the mittens. I've shown it. So it makes a little bit of a scallopy look, and then I did 1 ridge of garter, and then I launched into the ribbing. So the double stitch, that cast on with this pencil roving kind of yarn in a whole sweater's worth amount of stitches is really not for the faint of heart. It was a challenge to get it all cast on without it breaking, but I managed to. So that is kind of one of the projects that I cast on and that I've been working on. I have a few inches left to do, and then the sleeves. So I'm hoping to get all of kind of that part done before it gets cold, so that I can do it. Right now, it's a really, really warm day. It's probably going to be the last really warm day of summer. So it's got a lot of weight to it. So I probably won't work on that today because it's very woolly feeling. And when we went through in the middle of August, it got cold. It felt cold for August, and it was actually too windy a few days and cold to like knit on the porch. But I would like to get sort of that, as much as I can of that done. That is going to be sort of a sweater that I'm hoping to have to wear this fall. I cast on all these things and they'll get done eventually. I'm not like working to get that. I got to get that sweater finished. I am really a process knitter, and I've just been seeing so much, about there must be a lot of more product knitters out there or something that are, it's got to get all of this done and knit these things as fast as you can. And I just love to enjoy the actual like knitting, and I could power through that sweater in no time if I just wanted to sit down and knit it. I mean, I know that I could. I'm enjoying it much, much more, being able to like just knit it in little bursts at a time. So I will have lots more of new things to show you in shows coming up. So off the needles, I didn't finish anything during all last month because I was just casting on, but I did want to revisit an old project that my green handspun shawl that I showed you. It was finished on my last show, but it hadn't been blocked yet. So I blocked it out and I wanted to show you how it came out. And it went through a lot of changes and ripping, but I'm really happy with this finished project. So I blocked it all out and it came out really big. Now you have to tell me if you think that this is, well, less than 700 yards. I found my little tag that had the yardage on it, and it said 702 yards. And I know I had 3 grams of yarn left. So it turned out huge. I'm going to like back up so that you can see it. So this is how big it's like, longer than my wingspan, but I am so, so happy with it. This is the Alberta shawl by Annalise Mygard, and I extended the length of it so the 3 bottom tiers of leaves on the bottom were added on. And so I did her smaller version, but then I added on to the bottom of it. And I just love how it turned out. This was hand spun that I spun last year, and it's alpaca and silk, so it has a ton of drape, and it's really huge, but it's nice. I love having, it's nice to have a great big shawl once in a while. I planned on taking this to Stitches Midwest. I blocked it the week before, and took some pictures. I put pictures of it up on Instagram, and so to photograph it, I kind of clipped it to the curtain rod of the picture window in the living room, and it, because it looked really pretty in there, and actually it looks really pretty in there because it takes up half of the window. And I was packing to go, and I thought at one point, oh, I should, take that down. You know where this is going? I was about a third of the way to Chicago when I remembered my shawl was still hanging in the window. So I didn't have it with me. I felt like really bad because I thought, oh, I will have it, and maybe someone will recognize it or want to see it, and I had all like everything that I took along to wear like went with the shawl, and I had my green orchid, which cracked when I was there, and so I was like worried about it breaking. But I love how it turned out. It was worth all the ripping to get the final thing that that I kind of had that sort of shape. I had no idea that it would turn out that big, because I just didn't think that I had that much yardage. So in spinning, I do have finished spinning to show you. I think my actual showing, my actual showing of the fiber got cut out of the last podcast, because I bought this fiber when I was at knitting camp from Sun Valley Fibers. It's their Superwash BFL, but it was a color called Ocean View, and so I spun that up. So this is my finished handspun. It is, let's see, I wrote it down, I thought. Okay, now I'm going to have to find it. I think it came out to like 400 yards. There's a 350 yard skein in there and a 500 yard skein, or a 50 yard skein, because I wanted to tell you like what I did. So it was a really pretty sort of greens and blues kind of roving. And so I split it in half lengthwise because I wanted to do just a 2-ply. And I spun one just up on, I spun them both on my Ash for Joy. So I spun one just as it came, you know, the half of it lengthwise. And then at the other half, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought, well, maybe this would make a really pretty socks, but it's just the 100% BFL. But I thought with a little bit, if I added a little bit of silk, it would make it a little bit stronger. So for the second ply, or second single of the yarn, I took that and I blended it just on hand cards, and then as I was, each little batch that I was doing, I just added a little bit of silk. So it wasn't real scientific that I, you know, this much fiber to this much. I just would, you know, each time I would, you know, load the cards, I would just add a little silk. And so it blended it up to this most beautiful teal. And then I plied it with that. So the larger skein, the 350 yard skein, is that. And this was a technique I learned in a class with Patsy Z. She calls it making the perfect neutral. So if you have a variegated roving that, like, maybe it crosses the color wheel, so that if you, a lot of times those, if you just ply it on itself, it gets kind of muddy. So you have this really pretty painted roving, but then you ply it, it gets muddy, you know, muddy down, and that's because the colors cross the color wheel. So if you blend that, well, so one way of preserving the really pretty painted roving colors is to ply it with something else, and, you know, like a solid. But then sometimes, even if it's a brown or whatever, it's just the cast of it is wrong. So if you blend up the painted roving, it has all the colors in there, and if they're crossing the color wheel, it makes brown, gray, but they're the right cast to ply with itself. So this didn't have that. This was blues and greens, but it made a really pretty and kind of more, maybe more uniform yarn. So then the little skein, I ran out. I obviously didn't divide it too evenly. So the little 50 yard skein was just what was left on my first bobbin, and I plied that on itself. So that is just a 2-ply. But I thought, well, that, you know, could work for whatever. So anyway, that is my finished yarn. So after I finished that one, I did start spinning a new one. I've been really enjoying since Tour de Fleece, just sitting down kind of right before bed and spinning a little bit. It's been really nice. So I started a new project, and this is from Hobbledehoy. I don't know if that's going to show. And it is called East Asia. It is Merino Tencel 50/50. And so these are the colors of it. It's like reds and oranges and kind of, there's some pretty pinks in there. And you can see how shiny it is. And so this I'm just spinning up to a really thin single. I'm going to just ply it together. And I have about maybe a quarter of it left to do, so an ounce left to do. I'm hoping to get that done this week and get it plied up, because next weekend is Wisconsin Sheep and Wool, so I might end up getting something new to spin. I've been trying to do, I know a lot of people when they are using up, they go towards the oldest thing that they have, their oldest stash of fiber or yarn or whatever. I'm doing just the opposite. I'm going like what I got the newest and going to the oldest. So that I got, that was a gift from my ZK roommate. So I'm spinning that up, and then we'll see what happens after that. But it's a really nice fiber to spin. It's the Merino Tencel, so it's spinning up really thin, and I'm enjoying working with it a lot. So other than that, I have just a little bit of show and tell. I went to Stitches Midwest. You know, I did a lot of fun things. I don't think I'm going to have time to like tell you kind of really about them, because I don't want this to be like too long, which is kind of why I just showed you that one thing. But I did go to Stitches. It was fun. I just was there one night. I drove down and was there. I went to the market during the day on Friday, and then went home Saturday afternoon. So it was fun. There were a bunch from knitting camp that I got to see, so that was fun, just going out for dinner and hanging out with them and stuff. And there were a bunch of other people that I knew that were there, and I was like, almost, I was ready to leave, and like texting, and was like, I wish I could have got to see you, and then finally I did. So, and I stayed for lunch, and you know, went home shortly after that. But I didn't do a lot of shopping. I did enough. I feel like I bought enough. I kind of went what was in my head that I wanted to get. I knew I wanted to get, well, I didn't know I wanted to get, if I found a sweater's worth of yarn, I thought I'll buy it. There were some things that I got to see. There were, you know, like there's new colors of Brooklyn Tweed, Shelter and Loft yarn. So I got to see them in person. I didn't buy any, you know, because I thought that's not gonna go away. I mean, I can always order that. But when I was there in person, if I was going to get a sweater's worth of yarn, I wanted to get one from maybe an indie dyer that I wasn't going to see again, that, you know, because a lot of times one color will really hit you, and maybe the next time they dye it, it's just not going to have that magic in it. Like, it's just sometimes there's magic that happens. And so I had it in my head that I was going to get yarn from one dyer, and then I don't know what happened, just, you know, nothing. I have a lot of her yarn already, so maybe that was it. But I saw this yarn and it drew me. She had like I don't know if it was a double booth or more, even more than that, but it was more than just one single booth, because I like kind of went in on one end and I saw this yarn and I walked towards it with my hand outreached, because it just drew me across the booth. And then I went back I walked around the whole thing and then came back and they still had, enough for a sweater, and it still just did the absolute same thing to me. So it's probably not going to show up as really beautiful as it is in person. Just I tried taking the pictures with it to put on Instagram, and I could not capture the beauty of it at all. But whenever I would show it to people, um, they, their eyes sort of roll back in their head. But it is this. It is, well, no, it's way, 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 way prettier. Um, but it is from the Verdant Griffin, and it has her Traveler base, which is a 100% superwash merino. It's a DK weight, and this is the color called Athena, and it just drew me. I had it. I didn't cast on for anything yet, and I had it back in the other room, and I went just back to get a skein so that I could have to show it to you. And I took it out of the bag and I went, oh, I mean, again, it's so pretty. It's a teal, but it's got a richness and in it that is just, I, it's really, really beautiful. Um, so I have in my head, I want to do something with lots of cables. And then another booth that I knew that I wanted to go to was one of the, it was the thing from 2 years ago, was the last time I was at Stitches, that I didn't buy and I regretted after that. So I knew I wanted to get some of it. And that is from Lost City Knits. And she has a lot of different bases, but I knew she had this 100% silk lace weight. It's 1,000 yards. And I knew I wanted a skein of this to make a lace shawl. It was so hard to choose a color. Her colors were all so beautiful, and I kept, like going back and looking, and finally I went with this one, which is almost that bright. It's a really, really bright magenta color. She calls it Cranberry Coneflower, which it looks way brighter than any coneflower that I've ever seen, but it's a really bright magenta. This is sort of my fallback position, because I couldn't decide on any of the others. They were all so pretty. So I am thinking about, what to design to use for that. And then only about one other thing, and that was a booth that I kept going back to and back to and back to. It's something about, some dyers, it's just, you totally connect with the way they see colors. There were some booths that had a really clear vision. You could tell it was very cohesive. They looked beautiful, and they were wonderful. It's just, they were not sort of my colors. But this one, I wanted to pick up her entire booth and just plant it right here, because it was so beautiful. Her attention to detail is just phenomenal. And I just really love her colors. And so that is Canon Hand Eyes. So I kept going back to her booth and back to her booth. I have her a set of her little mini skeins. The peacocks I bought at Madrona a couple years ago, but she had the Downton Abbey ones, and she had the Jane Austen ones, and she had just, so those were really pretty. But I haven't done anything with the set I have, so I thought I should get something different. And then she had, sock yarns, and she had like really pretty like shawl kits and put together with the colors, and those were really beautiful. And and everything was arranged so beautifully. I would just stand there and you could just like just to see everything. It was a little overwhelming. So finally I went back and I saw this, and I immediately an idea of like what the shawl out of this would look like just in my head. It just was there. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to get. And so she made some of these little bullseye gradients. And it is a sparkly sock yarn. I don't know if that, yeah, you can see the sparkles. So it's sparkly, and the color is called Beach Glass. And it is just a sock yarn. And so this will be but look at how, like, the attention to detail. It's, you know, got the teal, and then it's got the teal ribbon. Everything was like that, you know, just like perfect. So this will be a shawl. I thought this would be like the perfect shawl to sort of, whenever I go to Hawaii, I always like knit a shawl like sitting on the beach. And wouldn't this be perfect for that? So this will probably, this was one of the things I thought, well, this will be put away and maybe saved to see if I get back to Hawaii, because that would be like the perfect beach shawl. So those were the 3 things that I bought at Stitches, and it was fun. I'm glad I went down there. I especially wanted to get that Lost City Knits. But I don't know, I mean, in future years, if I will do that. It just seemed sort of anticlimactic after knitting camp, because they're so close together. But anyway, so I guess that is all that I have for today. I want to thank everybody for watching and for sticking with me through this month off. So it is on iTunes, and it is also on YouTube, and that is another way that if you can't, you know, if you want to subscribe to it on there, then at least you get notified that they're every week. And that is my goal, is to keep doing the weekly podcast, keeping them to 30 minutes, because I know that works always good for me, and so I'm hoping it works good for you. And so the YouTube channel is Heartland Knits, 2 words, Heartland space Knits, and so subscribe on there, and to bump it up into everybody's you know, searches, you can do the thumbs up thing too. Whatever. But I want to thank you all for watching, and until I see you next week, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.